me go ahead.
All set.
Great.
Thank you.
We have 2 cats in attendance. Okay, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Millbrae Special Planning Commission meeting. We are meeting on a Wednesday evening, a little bit different. So thank you so much to the commissioners, our staff, and those members of the public who are able, and the applicants who are able to join us this evening on June 29th, 2022. As you can tell, we are doing this via video conference only. And this people are able to watch this in real time on MCTV. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can we start with roll call, please?
Of course. Commissioner Del Negro.
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Quigg. Present. Vice Chair Davis.
Here.
Chair Joe.
Present.
4 members of the Planning Commission is present with Commissioner Wong excused.
Thank you. And welcome to Elaine Tran, our city clerk, who is able to join us after having moved on to better things from us. So it's good to see you here. Can we go ahead with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? So if we can have the flag on the screen. Stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have, we'll go to item number 1, which is for agenda review. Do we have any items to address in terms of the agenda for this evening? Any comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to item number 2, which is approval of minutes, but we do not have any this evening. So that's easy. We'll go on to public communication, item number 3, and this is reserved for persons wishing to comment on any item not appearing on tonight's agenda, but under the purview of the Planning Commission. So do we have any members of the public wishing to speak? And again, this is for items not on the agenda. City Clerk, do you see anybody? Nope. Okay, so that's easy. We're going to go breeze through this. So item number 4 is public hearing. So 4A is on 959 El Camino Real. This is a public hearing to consider a design review permit, a conditional use permit, and a vesting tentative parcel map for condominium purposes on the property located at 959 El Camino Real to allow for a 6-story tall mixed-use building with 278 residential units, approximately 17,210 square feet of ground floor commercial space, and below grade and ground level parking on an approximately 1.86 acre site. So I'll finish reading with that, and we can have this, if we can have the staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair Joe. I just want to confirm that you're seeing the full screen.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chair Joe and Planning Commissioners. My name is Nestor Guevara, Associate Planner here for the City of Millbrae. I'm joined by Roscoe Mata, our Planning Manager as well. And before I get started with the presentation, I just want to point out and mention a couple of things. One, that 3 pieces of correspondence were provided to the Planning Commissioners before the start of the meeting. 2, it was 3 letters, 2 in opposition to the project, and then 1 in support of the project. And just one correction from the staff report, that it does read, it does mention that the project is providing 3 bike racks. It's actually providing 9 bike racks for a total of 18 offsite bicycle spaces. For the
I'm sorry, before you begin, can we maybe take a little bit of time for the ex parte? Has anybody had any ex parte communications with the applicants? Just really quickly.
I've had none.
None. Okay, and I see Commissioner Davis shaking her head, and I have not had any. Okay, so thank you. We'll continue on. Sorry.
Sure, no worries. Objective for tonight. So the objective tonight is to hold a public hearing to consider Planning Commission action on the following items: a design review permit, a conditional use permit, a vesting tentative parcel map, and a project environmental determination for a 6-story mixed-use building that would contain 278 residential units and 17,210 square feet of ground floor commercial units at the property at 959 El Camino Real. This here shows a map of where the property is located. It's bounded by 3 streets, El Camino Real, Meadow, Glen Avenue, and then Broadway as well. And the other side that's bordered by what you see here in the map is the parking lot. That is the Millbrae Square property there. The existing site, as you see at the pictures on the left, it's a single-story commercial building. It's about 31,000 square feet on the 1.86 acre lot. The building has been vacant for, I believe, some time now. There was a seasonal use as a Spirit Halloween store, but before that, it was the Office Depot for some years. In terms of the proposed project, the mixed-use building would include 278 residential units, over 17,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space, amenity space for the residents, and public and private open spaces would be available as well. This image here on the right is a rendering prepared by the applicant showing the proposed building. I believe this is an angle from what would be the street side here would be Broadway, and this side of the building here would be facing the Millbrae Square property. The proposed building would be 6 stories tall, and the building height would be a maximum of 83 feet and 10 inches. On-site parking is provided both by below-grade parking and then a ground-level parking as well. Development standards for the proposed project. The proposed project is in the commercial zone. The project conforms to many of the development standards in the commercial zone, including floor area ratio, lot coverage, setbacks, and the bicycle parking requirements. The project, however, is seeking a waiver of the commercial zone maximum height, a reduction in the required residential parking, and also a concession to reduce the required commercial parking. State density bonus law. The project is proposing 26 units at the very low income level. This equals 13% of the base units. Pursuant to section 65915B1 of the California Government Code, cities are required to grant a density bonus, parking reductions, waivers to development standards, and 2 concessions or incentives to housing projects that provide affordable housing at the proposed level. The applicant, as I mentioned, is seeking a height waiver, a reduction in the residential parking, and a concession to reduce the commercial parking under this state density bonus law. In terms of the building height waiver, the maximum height in the commercial zone is 40 feet. The proposed project is at its highest is 83 feet and 10 inches. The applicant then is requesting a waiver of the maximum 40-foot height limit in order to achieve the proposed density under state density bonus law. Applying the existing height limit of the 40 feet in the commercial zone to this project would physically preclude construction of the project at the density permitted by the state density bonus law. The residential parking reduction. The required residential parking in the commercial zone is a rate of 1.5 spaces per unit. In this case, that would equal for 417 spaces for the proposed 278 residential units. The project is proposing a residential parking at a ratio of 1.1 spaces per unit for a total of 307 spaces. The state density bonus law allows a project that's within half a mile of an accessible major transit stop and that is providing at least 11% of base allowable units to very low income households a residential parking reduction of up to 0.5 spaces per unit. There is a major accessible transit stop adjacent to the project. It's located at the intersection of El Camino Real and Meadow Glen Avenue. And the project is also proposing the 13% of its base allowable units as very low income units. Commercial parking concession. The commercial parking required in the commercial zone is 5 spaces for 1,000 square feet. For retail use and for the restaurant use, it is 1 space for each 2.5 seats. The proposed project is providing commercial parking on the ratio of 2.4 spaces per 1,000 square feet. State density bonus law allows projects that provide at least 11% of base allowable units to very low income households, 2 concessions or incentives. To accommodate the commercial parking requirements under the 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of retail land use, that's the commercial zone requirement. The project would require the construction of an additional level of parking. The applicant estimates the parking costs, the construction of the parking, of the additional level of parking to be an additional $4.83 million. The actual cost savings resulting from not having to construct the additional parking would facilitate the project's provision of very low income units, and it would help to make the project financially feasible. In terms of circulation and parking, the project is proposing pedestrian improvements, sidewalk widening. It's proposing the Paseo improvement. It would be a Paseo on that side of the building that abuts the Millbrae Square property. It would provide a connection between Broadway, a pedestrian connection between Broadway and El Camino Real. New street trees would be planted throughout the project site. I think a total of 42 street trees. Street furniture would also be provided in the form of both bike racks and outdoor seating areas. And as mentioned earlier, parking would be provided both at a below grade and at grade level. The total would be 349 vehicle parking stalls. 307 of these would be for the residential uses, and then 42 spaces would be for the commercial uses. And they will also provide 86 total bike parking, both long-term and short-term. 68 spaces for long-term parking, for long-term bike parking, and I believe 18 spaces for short-term bike parking. There was a transportation impact analysis prepared as part of the project as well by our transportation consultant at Fair and Pierce. The transportation impact analysis included recommendations for the project that are included as conditions of approval in Exhibit A of Attachment 1 of your packet. These recommendations include: 1, a recommendation for the project applicant to pay a fair share contribution of $50,000 for the city to study a modification to the Meadow Glen Avenue and El Camino Real lane geometry and signal phasing. Number 2, a recommendation for the project applicant to pay a fair share contribution of $20,000 for the city to study a modification to the intersection control at Meadow Glen Avenue and Broadway as part of a future intersection improvement. And number 3, a recommendation for the project applicant to install 2 additional offsite directional curb ramps at the El Camino Real Meadow Glen intersection on the northwest and southeast corners to improve the pedestrian experience. The project also includes open space. It includes over 25,000 square feet of new open space across the project site. As mentioned earlier, 42 new street trees would be planted. The Paseo side would feature outdoor seating, street trees as well, of course, and a planting area to serve as buffer. The project would also include an interior courtyard for the residents, as well as a roof deck that would be facing the Broadway side of the building. In terms of the environmental analysis for the project is eligible for Class 32 categorical exemption as an infill development project. There's no substantial adverse impacts that are anticipated, and this is further discussed in the categorical exemption that was prepared by ICF, our CEQA consultants, and it's included as part of your packet for tonight. Approval of this project would include adoption of the categorical exemption and direction to staff to file a notice of exemption. With that said, the staff recommendation for the Planning Commission action tonight is a recommendation to adopt a resolution approving a design review permit, conditional use permit, a vesting tentative parcel map for condominium purposes, adopting a Class 32 categorical exemption in accordance with CEQA guidelines section 15332, infill development projects, and directing city staff to file a notice of exemption for the categorical exemption on the property located at 959 El Camino Real, APN 021-364-080, to allow for a 6-story tall mixed-use building with 278 residential units, approximately 17,210 square feet of ground floor commercial space, and below grade and ground level parking on an approximately 1.86 acre site based on the findings of approval in the resolution and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A. That concludes my presentation. Staff, including the city attorney's representative, Ellis Raskin, and the city's CEQA and transportation and parking consultants are available for any questions you might have. The project applicant is here as well, and they have a presentation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Guevara. And thank you for a great presentation. Do we have, before we hear from the applicant, Mr. Raskin, did you have any comments you wish to make? Okay, City Council.
I do not have any additional comments, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions of staff at this time before the applicants come on?
I prefer to listen to the applicant before posing questions to both.
Okay,
staff and
that's fine. That's great. Any others though? Any questions? I just have one. I just wanted to ask for a reminder. I know we have been working on the downtown and priority development area plans, and those have included this area in particular. So I did want to ask our planning manager, Mr. Mata, in terms of that specifically, because right now it's zoned commercial for 40 feet. That area, can you please refresh our memory in terms of what that area was going to be in the proposal? It's not, I know it's not official yet, but the proposed plan that we've been discussing in the past.
Sure. So members of the Planning Commission, Chair Joe, so the specific plan, which has been reviewed by the Planning Commission and City Council and is currently out for public review, envisions this area as with a height limit of 85 feet maximum. And this proposed project is proposed at 8310, so below that height limit.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, I'm aware that it's not an approved plan yet, so we can't reference it. But since that's something that we're thinking about, the whole vision of the city, I thought that would be good to make a note of. So with that, let's go ahead and get the applicants to please give their presentation. If you can go ahead and promote them to panelists. Hello, welcome. I don't know who will be speaking, Mr. Pianca or who?
Hi, good evening. Yes, this is Brian Pianca with High Street Residential. Thanks for Nestor for a presentation and for staff for working with us over the past couple of years on this project. With me tonight, I have a couple team members from my team, Margot Sulman and Asheen Hennigan, as well as Nathan Simpson, architect with BDE, and our civil engineer and landscape architect are also available to contribute to the presentation as well. I think Margot is going to bring up the presentation. Great. So once again, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present our project tonight. It's a project that we're very excited about and one that we've been working on for quite some time now. Next slide, please, Margot. And there's the project team again. I think we can go to the location slide. So as Nestor outlined, the project situated at the northwest corner of Meadow, Glen, and El Camino, also surrounded by Broadway and Millbrae Square, across from the 24-hour fitness, and on the opposite side of El Camino, the Orchard Supply Hardware. Total site area is about 1.86 acres, and you'll notice one thing that you'll notice on this map here is that the lower right-hand corner is not part of the project. Although if you're out there today, it is connected to the larger former Office Depot building. So that small parcel there is actually a 3,700 square foot city-owned parcel that the Office Depot is currently leasing from the city. Even though it's shut down, it's still an active lease. And when the Office Depot is operating, that was in use as a loading dock for the Office Depot. So that is not part of our project, although we will discuss it later on in the presentation because we believe there's an opportunity as our project advances and the El Camino downtown specific plan advances to turn that potentially to work together with the city to turn that into a plaza or a park that will further help to activate the north side of downtown. Next slide, please. So here again is the site as it sits today with the vacant Office Depot building. The front doors of the Office Depot were on El Camino roughly. They didn't front directly on El Camino, but they kind of fronted on the side of El Camino, as many of you certainly know. And the back of the building really focused on the Millbrae Square parking lot and Broadway. So, one thing that's been talked about in the plan and what we've been thinking about in terms of our planning of the site is really reorienting the building so that it opens up to Broadway and helps deliver the vision, the plan goal to activate Broadway and become a catalyst for downtown and become a project that really improves the north side of downtown and draws the pedestrians to the north side of downtown. As Nestor mentioned, it's a 6-story project with ground floor commercial space. Total residential units are 278 residential units with 26 affordable units at very low income, so 50% AMI or less, with 17,000 square feet of ground floor retail. You can see there again, we really tried to align the project with the goals of the downtown and El Camino Real specific plan, and you'll see that throughout the presentation. In terms of the project timeline, I mentioned that we've got this for a few years now. The project pre-app was originally submitted back in November of 2019. It went on a brief hold during COVID, and then we re-engaged in the project in late 2020, submitted the pre-app in early 2021, and are before you on Planning Commission tonight. Assuming that we move forward on our current schedule, we expect to be into construction the middle of next year with completion scheduled for late 2025. So here's an overview of the ground floor plan. Just for reference, everything in the pinkish color is the ground floor commercial space, and the blue is resident space. And then we've also highlighted the trash room in green, as we know from other discussions on other projects that we listened to, that's a very important part of making sure that these projects work properly. So the majority of the retail the commercial is focused along Broadway and what we hope will be a future paseo there on the right side of the screen. So that is the paseo that will connect Broadway to El Camino and really help kind of break down what is now a super block of parking and large retail buildings that expand all along the El Camino frontage. The majority of the residential activity will be focused on the corner of Meadow, Glen, and El Camino. We'll have our primary residential lobby, resident amenity, Wi-Fi lounge, fitness, and then also a bike room that's situated next to the fitness and adjacent to El Camino. As we've been following the recent efforts to add a bike lane to El Camino, and we hope that in the future, should that go forward, that bike room will be well positioned for that. Not shown here, but as Nestor mentioned, is the below grade garage. That garage is entirely for residential parking. And then you'll also see in the lower right-hand corner there, again, that the city parcel that's surrounding the dotted line, that is not part of our project, but that is just shown for illustrative purposes as to what might become if we're able to successfully work with the city to contribute some of our park impact fee towards the development of that parcel, and that would be something that would be handled separately. So here is the ground floor plan again, but to help illustrate how the parking circulates. So the primary residential parking is below grade, and so that would be entered into off of El Camino down the purple arrow, which indicates where the retail and residential parking share access, and that's where about 75% of the retail of the residential parking is located. And then the remainder of the residential parking would be entered into off of Meadow Glen. And there's also some guest parking spaces there, and also the parking spaces that would allow for immediate access to the residential lobby, which will also hold our project leasing office. The commercial parking will be entirely accessed from the El Camino, and commercial parkers will either be able to exit back onto El Camino or onto Broadway. And then you also notice the trash room there. Because the ground floor of this building is double height, it's effectively 18 feet with 15 to 16 foot clear. We're able to bring the scavenger trucks into the garage and access the trash so that bins will not need to be stored on the street. One other thing to point out in this plan are the setbacks. So we're improving the street frontage with significantly wider sidewalks on Broadway and Meadow Glen. So those sidewalks are going to increase to 15 feet. And then the El Camino sidewalk is going to be refurbished and remain at 8 feet. Slide. And now I'm going to hand it over to Nathan Simpson from BDE. He's going to walk through the building in more detail, as will Scott Mullen from Creo Landscape, and we'll also walk through some landscape details as well.
All right, thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here tonight. I will say this city has been very nice to work in. It's been very pleasant. It's been an experience from pre-pandemic even, so it's been very fun. So tonight what we're looking at is a typical floor plan. This is floor 2. And working from the outside, the building is basically a donut-shaped building with a central courtyard. We have a central corridor that has units on both sides. Those face out to the public realm and also into the central courtyard. Along Broadway, we did listen to the city, over the last, how many years has it been? I guess 3 or 4, I'm losing track of time. And we wanted to align with you guys' vision for Broadway, which was enhancing the pedestrian experience there. So you will notice that the building is actually set back even further from the ground floor, which is, you can see the ground floor depicted in that green, which will be outdoor residential patios, essentially. And then we also have a pretty generous setback along the Millbrae Square parking lot, which also has a setback from the residential floors below, which you can see is the green. And then to articulate the building a little bit more and help break down its massing along this frontage, you can see we let the building move around a little bit. So it has more of a anchor point at El Camino Real. And then we also were able to play around a little bit with the building's shape, thanks to the City Plaza, which did give the building much more articulation. So as the project evolved, I think it grew a lot and developed into a nice project. Moving into the building, you'll see some dark purple squares. Those are the vertical circulations in the building. There's 4 elevators and 2 stairs. Those 4 elevators, some of them go up to the roof deck, which you'll see in a bit. And then it also goes down to the Broadway entrance, so that way our residents can access all the spaces out here, which like living spaces to get furniture for these places. And then there's also a main elevator bank that's over by the leasing lobby at El Camino Real and Meadow Glen. When you get up to this floor, you'll basically walk out into the resident lounge. There's an amenity space for communities that live in the building. And then that spills out onto a central courtyard, which has a pool. And to go through those features, I'll let Scott pick up from there.
Sure. Thanks, Nathan. So my name is Scott Mullen. I'm a landscape architect for the project, working with the team. And to walk you through the courtyard, first thing is the entire courtyard is built over the parking garage. The architecture was designed in a way that we can get a pool inside of there. And so we're showing a nice long lap pool. And it's located right off of the lounge space. So you have an amenity there as people can walk out, enjoy the pool space with shaded umbrellas, lots of planting, and it's all fenced in for the pool area. Adjacent to that, to the right, we have some lounge areas with a trellis covered area for shade and meandering pathways off of that to some quiet seating spaces. And the overall design really reflects kind of the contemporary Spanish style of the building and should create a nice outdoor environment for the residents. and I guess to talk about the roof deck. So this is kind of located right at the corner, right along Broadway, and it has great views of the hills to the southwest and the south. Has a variety of seating spaces, and it has a fenced-in dog run area with crushed gravel, as you can see from the image there with the little doggies. We also have a lot of wind screens around the perimeter of the roof deck to help make it more comfortable for users, and some trellis shaded element to help also with some of the sun exposure up the top. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Sure.
So now we're going into some nice renderings. The first rendering we're looking at here, this is looking at Meadow, Glen, and Broadway. So this would be your main retail frontages along the project. Towards the left, lower left of the page, you can see the leasing office, and then there's a little bit of an archway past that little car right there. So lots of articulation along Meadow Glen. You can see the garage entry that handles about 25% of the building's residents. And then you can wrap around the building and see that there's a lot of glazing. All those yellow windows, that's all retail frontage. We worked very, very hard over the last few years to move as much utility of this building, such as electrical rooms, transformers, water pumps, even the garage. We moved everything into the building as much as possible to get as much glazing and fenestration on this building to activate the frontage and create a more pedestrian friendly experience. Walking around the building, you'll see another archway. This is one of the main commercial entries here. The building is set back from the corner a little bit, which will allow for outdoor seating areas. All these commercial frontages, by the way, we didn't mention this in the plans. They're all designed for restaurants or commercials. We designed maximum flexibility into them. So whatever comes into these units of commercial, it's going to function well because we have outdoor space, we have ventilation. We really thought forward on this and wanted to set up a building that would work over time. And going into the actual building a little bit, as mentioned, it is a contemporary Spanish building. The color scheme is very neutral. We wanted to go with timeless. So the colors you can see are a warm gray palette. One trick of renderings is something that looks white isn't white. These are gray colors. We did submit a physical color board of all these. So we want the building to look clean over time, and white would look dirty. So we're just trying to keep the building looking nice. So going through it, working with the city over time, we actually started initially with a very modern building, very different from this. And it did a lot of things that I didn't feel like Millbrae. So we wanted to do something with Millbrae, and I think our entire team has been down in Millbrae a lot. I live in San Francisco, so I drive down to Millbrae just to go to Living Spaces. So anyway, the style is Spanish style. We see that very prevalent in Millbrae and all surrounding areas. And then to give it a little bit more character and not just be Spanish directly, we added some bay windows, which are, we're in the San Francisco Bay, so we wanted it to kind of read a little bit with that. Those also have a little bit of a nautical feel to them, almost like a ship's bow. And then lots of texture on the building. We have added a lot of trim. You can see base, middle, top trim. So the top floor has trim, the bottom of the building has trim. All the windows have trim. We've recessed windows. We wanted to create a lot of shadows. We wanted to create a lot of relief on the building to really help with its scaling and massing. Going to the next slide. This is one of the images you saw already. This one is, as referenced, living spaces from here. And this is Broadway. You can see the Millbrae parking center right there. You can also see the commercial frontage a little bit better along Broadway, how it sets back. We've introduced some trellises along there to help add a little bit more detailing. And then towards the center of the page, you'll see kind of a couple arches. That's our archway that goes into the plaza, future plaza that I'll get built that we've been talking about. So that right there is where our commercial tenants can have all their guests come in and exit on foot. that will spill out onto the space. So we're really envisioning this plaza as a very active space that promotes all these commercial frontages to stay very active and then, viable, similar to the southern portion of Broadway. And then you can also see at the center of this page at the top, there was the roof deck up there. You can see little people that can look down on the spaces, but that's just a fun little detail. Going to the next slide. Here you can see a little bit more detail of our commercial frontages. We added a little bit of variation in all the frontages, but we wanted to maximize glazing still because, exposure and having glazing is good for commercial. So we did all that. All the trellises you see get detailed out of metal, so they will last. We don't want anything that will fall apart or look bad over time. So everything is designed to last and have a more timeless feel. The entire base of the building has a durable stone finish, very similar in color palette, so it's not too contrast, but we know it won't stain over time. So it looks nice also. If you go to the next slide. And then this is just a view of the corner of the building, basically driving down, looking north on El Camino Real. You can see El Camino Real still has a lot of massing relief. You could see on the plans, it was a very almost flat building, but we've actually articulated the building 2 to 3 feet towards the middle, which helps add that vertical break that you're seeing. And then even El Camino Real, even our trash areas, minimal impact on views there because we're doing internal pickups and we're keeping everything glazing. And then the corner of the building also has these covered spaces. As mentioned, the commercial spaces are meant to be very flexible. A lot of them have covered spaces for outdoor dining or any sort of activities that may occur there. And I think that might be, yeah. So I think I'll hand this back over to Brian.
Great, thanks, Nathan. So before we conclude our presentation, we wanted to emphasize a couple additional highlights of the projects. We've talked about the 26 below market rate units. One other aspect of the project will be the future increase in property taxes. The project's been owned within the same family since the mid-60s and currently only generates a property tax, the property tax bill about $30,000 a year. Upon completion of our project, we're going to increase that amount by over $2 million a year in annual property taxes. We talked about the transit-oriented nature of the site. The San Trans high capacity bus stop is directly adjacent from the site. And we're also about 3/4 of a mile from the Millbrae station, multimodal Barton Caltrain station. And then once again, we meet all the city's sustainability goals for electric, solar panels, and as well as water. In terms of development impact fees, this is the first multifamily project to come through your commission that is going to be subject to the full amount of the relatively recently adopted development impact fees. So those total fees are about 14.6 million of city fees at a minimum and an additional 1.1 million of school fees. We're also paying our fair share for future upgrades in the El Camino sewer line, as well as upgrading the water and sewer lines in Meadow Glen. And then we talked additionally earlier about some of the improvements to the streetscape in terms of widening the sidewalk. We're also putting in directional curb ramps to improve pedestrian safety and installing new furnishing sidewalk benches along the project frontage. Here's some additional detail on the project's sustainability and energy efficiency. I think a couple of things that we haven't highlighted already are the EV charging spaces. So 33 EV spaces will be fully equipped upon completion. An additional 55 will be ready to be converted to high capacity level 2 spaces, and the remaining 196 will be the slower level 1 ready EV spaces. In terms of street trees, Nestor touched on it, but we're replacing 24 non-native trees, with a total of 59 new trees, both within the building courtyard and along the street's frontage. And one thing that we've heard a lot from our conversations with the city and various stakeholders is wind at this location. So we have initiated some initial wind studies to make sure that as we kind of refine the design of our landscaping and some of our wind blocking elements, that we're really kind of maximizing their effectiveness so that the spaces that they protect can be as useful as possible. In addition to being in a TOD location, we really try to capitalize on that location and design the project to reduce car trips. So the project, as you mentioned, with the bike room, is going to be right on El Camino and the future El Camino bike lane. Parking will be unbundled so that residents that do not want to have cars will not have to pay for it. And we're also going to have Wi-Fi lounge to support work from home, as well as Wi-Fi throughout the building. In terms of bike spaces, Nestor corrected the staff report earlier in terms of the number of outdoor bike racks. So those 9 racks will actually allow for 18 total spaces. And we're also providing 68 indoor bike racks or bike stalls. And that's more than double what is required. And we're also within that bike room that you saw in the El Camino, we're putting in amenities like bike wash, bike repair, to really make it friendly to bikers. And then in addition to that, some of the measures that we're also studying are making sure that we have the notifications for the garage entrances to make pedestrian and vehicle safety as safe as possible as for people entering and exiting the garage. And finally, in terms of our community outreach, we really started our community outreach last year with the immediate neighbors that you can see on the screen there in the upper left. Since then, we've had numerous project briefings with the SFPUC across the street, the Housing Leadership Council, individuals that were interested in the project, as well as Peninsula Clean Energy and the Peninsula Chinese Business Association. We also held a virtual community meeting in April, and also had a virtual community meeting that was hosted by the PCBA, Peninsula Chinese Business Association, at their monthly meeting. And with that concludes our presentation. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Before we hear from the public, do the commissioners have any questions of the applicant and or the staff, since we didn't have any earlier? Or did you want to go to public comment first, or what's the pleasure of the commissioners?
Let's just hear comments first.
Public comments. Is that okay with the Commissioner Quigg and Dunleavy?
That's acceptable for me.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead to public comments. So do we have members of the public wishing to speak? I think, City Clerk, I think we have at least one person with their hand raised. Okay, Mr. Ken Chan, please go ahead.
Sure thing. Hello, members of the Millbrae Planning. Oh, should I wait?
You can go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Good evening, members of the Millbrae Planning Commission. My name is Ken Chan, and I'm an organizer with the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. We work with communities and their leaders to produce and preserve quality, affordable homes. I'd first like to thank staff for all of their hard work in putting together the report on the proposal under discussion tonight. On behalf of HLC, and as mentioned in our email, I'd like to express our support for the One Meadow Glen proposal, also known as 959 El Camino Real. The proposed 278 new homes, of which 26 will be affordable, have the potential to contribute to a more vibrant downtown in your city. Give your residents the option to utilize public transit to get to their places of work, and more importantly, provide the much needed additional homes to your city to counteract the jobs housing imbalance that your residents are collectively experiencing at this moment. We urge you to take the necessary steps needed to make this proposal a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? You will need to do so if you want to by raising your hand on the Zoom app. So I'm not seeing anybody beyond Mr. Chair. Do we have no? Nope. Okay, so I guess we have attendees, but we don't have any one that I can tell raising their hand. So do I have a motion to go ahead and close the public comment section?
Move to close the public comment.
Second?
I'll second.
Second, can we vote to close public comment, please?
Commissioner Del Negro,
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes,
Public hearing is closed. I mean, public communication.
public comment. Thank you. Okay, so who would like to go ahead and start among the commissioners for discussion, motions, etc., questions? Anybody would like to? Commissioner Del Negro, oh, Commissioner Davis? Okay, I see your hand.
Yeah, I only have one tiny question. The staff report was great. The presentation was great. The handful of questions I wrote down, well, I'm like, check, got answered. The only thing I have left is when we talk about bicycle parking, I don't ride a bicycle or a scooter, but do scooters work on bike racks too? Because I see more and more people tooling around on scooters now. So I just wonder if somebody scoots to the shops down there, will they have a good place to park?
To my understanding, and Margot on my team might be able to answer this better than I, because she is a more avid biker. But I do not believe that the bike racks can accommodate the scooters. So that is something that one of the ideas that was thrown around for if that city parcel gets developed is to make that a micro mobility hub, where things like scooter share could be accommodated.
So not even scooter share, but just people who own a scooter, or then they're coming from wherever. Maybe they live in Millbrae and they're going to come down and have a visit to the restaurant there. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. Yep.
well, that's what I meant. Like
Okay.
even just random
Yeah,
ones, not just micro mobility.
And my answer was really thinking about kind of the indoor bike racks. We do have some outdoor racks, which you've probably seen, which are just more, metal loops, if you will. I don't see any reason why those couldn't accommodate a scooter. And in fact, I've seen those accommodate scooters. But it's more the bike racks that are within the garage in a secure bike room. Some of those are stacked 2 stories high, and just wouldn't be appropriate for a scooter.
Okay. And Jean, do you want us just to make comments now too, since I'm off mute, or?
Sure, if you
Sure.
can go ahead and do that, please.
I mean, I think I only have positive things to say.
That's all right.
Really excited about the very low income BMRs. I mean, the very low are the hardest ones to get. So that is fantastic. I'm pleased that the parking is more than 2 times what would be required if you exercise the complete density bonus, so to speak. You could have less parking. You've got twice as much parking. You could have less and you've got it. I already said the staff report was fabulous. Thank you so much. Glad to see that pets are going to be allowed. I mean, they have to be now. There's just no way that people can live without their dogs and cats these days. So that's good to say. When it comes to increasing the height, I'm fine. When it comes to reducing the residential parking, I'm fine. And the number you've come up for commercial parking seems very reasonable. And I love that the roof deck faces the sunset and the hills. I think that'll be lovely. And that's it. Well done.
Thank you. Commissioner Del Negro, I see you unmuted, so I'm going to
I'm
take
unmuted. I do like to typically wait to not be the first person to ask questions.
Okay.
Really
It's
dominate
okay.
with questions. I guess I'm not really clear about the vesting map part. I would like to return to that at some point. But I did appreciate, I understand the implications of that mean that at some point they could be moved into sellable condos. Is that the point of a vesting map here?
That's the point of the vesting of the condominium portion of the vesting tentative map. That's correct. That's not our intention, but it's just an easy way to leave the optionality open in the future.
I love to have the option of that in the future. Obviously, it's a great thing for Millbrae to have eventually some sellable units, not just rentable units. The parking lot, I guess I have a written list here of some questions. I'll go through them in somewhat of a order in which they came up during the presentation. The parking lot on the Millbrae Square side, obviously it is a parking lot right now. I do anticipate that commercial and residential people may utilize that parking lot ad hocly. The owner of that parking lot is aware of this risk to their space, and they're okay with it. Has they responded?
So we have been in contact with them since as early as last year, and we've met with a representative of theirs from the start. I would say consistently they have expressed some concern about parking enforcement in the future, if you will. And they actually and they sent in a letter just yesterday expressing some concern about that. We designed the project so that we're not utilizing their parking. We're actually in that paseo there. If we go into that in more detail, it's really kind of a landscape buffer along that edge. And also if you were to be on El Camino today, going south, making a right-hand turn after you pass the Office Depot, that curb cut you'll no longer be able to make a right-hand turn into that area. That's only going to be an exit for Millbrae Square. So it's going to further discourage people coming down El Camino from trying to use the Millbrae Square parking lot for parking. But it is an operational issue. It is an enforcement issue that I think the neighbors are all going to have to work together on. I know now our site is typically used for a lot of the 24-hour parking, even though there's a full level parking underneath the gym. So that's just one thing I think everyone's got to be diligent with their enforcement. We have designed the parking lot to provide signage so that as you're approaching our building on El Camino, you will know to pull in as opposed to driving past to Millbrae Square. But so that's how we're generally thinking about the parking.
And is there any impact on the on-street diagonal parking in front of this building on Broadway?
Yes, so the on-street diagonal parking will be as part of the Broadway will be getting more narrow, and that on-street diagonal parking will go into parallel.
I know that's used heavily by the people across the street. So I picked that is actually somewhat of a negative for at least the fitness center where a lot of people park there. Something to consider. The location of the short-term parking for the bicycles. You mentioned obviously it was higher than it was in the presentation here than it was in the documents before. Is it split up from each of the three commercial places, like one in each corner of the building? Or is it? It wasn't.
Yeah, is it possible to bring up a slide?
So that might be good.
So, and Margot, if you want to indicate where it is.
Sorry, to repeat, just to clarify the short-term parking.
Short-term bicycle parking. What are the locations of that?
They're located near the entrances of each retail store entrances. And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's one here and there's one here too, and basically along the paseo and along Broadway.
And there's none over at the Meadow Glen Broadway corner commercial spot. Is there anything over there?
Correct. We're not showing any over there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Not that it has to be in every single corner of a building, but I just want to understand how it's split up.
We typically place them in areas that are have a lot of visibility, so people feel comfortable leaving their bikes there.
As a cyclist, I appreciate that. The exit you show here on Broadway that leaves from the commercial parking spot, this is actually a perfect figure for this, or image for this. I'm a little worried about the tree that's located right in front of the commercial spot as you exit and visibility down Broadway. Those two trees poke out, away from the building. They're kind of a little further out. And then you have another row of trees that are closer to the building. That's a lot of obstacles to kind of put in the way of a driver coming out of a dark area into the light and trying to make a right-hand turn. So I'm a little concerned about the visibility there and the safety for anybody on that sidewalk, anybody driving down Broadway going north to northwest. Has that been reconsidered or considered about the visibility safety there?
Yeah, I certainly hear your concern. I think it's a good detail to point out. That's certainly something that we're open to looking at. I know that we'll need to make sure we're complying with city's street tree.
I love that you have the row that's a little further towards the Paseo building there. That's fine. It's the two that are kind of like closer to Broadway that poke out that create more of another line of row of trees. I'm just a little bothered by the location there. And if they were back further towards the building, maybe it would be a little easier, but I know that you may have some overhang issues.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's something that we can confirm in the more detailed drawings as we confirm the line of sight there.
I'm a little concerned about the line of sight, is what I would say there, those two trees. All right, and you answered a great question. I was curious about whether or not these would be available for restaurants. I was happy to hear that's a plausibility. I'd like to be able to go eat at more places in that area of town as well. I was under the interpretation when I read the design of the commercial parking lot here that on the El Camino side that there were two entrances there separate, that there was an entrance over to the right, but there's a tree there and it sounds like there's no longer, or there isn't a second commercial entrance.
Yeah, there has never been a second commercial entrance there. I think graphically, I could see how you might think that, but yeah, that is just there to allow us to get some more parking.
Okay.
But yeah, that is not a second entrance.
So one way in, one way out, kind of down that arm, going back, cutting back towards El Camino there, and you have to kind of do a U-turn.
Correct. You would also be able to exit out onto Broadway as well.
Okay. An entrance wise from Meadow Glen into the residential parking lot that's on the Meadow Glen side there. If I am going in this image downward, which would be to the southwest on Meadow Glen, on the opposite side of the street near the City Bank, am I legally about to make a left-hand turn into this residential parking?
You will not be.
Okay, because that would highly concern me because of the backup towards El Camino Real and the safety of that. Particularly also the backup that happens in that from people waiting at El Camino Real to make a right-hand turn or go left. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks. I think that completes my concerns about the traffic around the building. How close are you to the high voltage elevation, high voltage lines that cross Millbrae Square? Those are very high voltage, high lines.
Yeah, so those are tall lines. The tower that you see kind of on the, I think it's actually across El Camino next to the Orchard Supply, that's about a 105-foot tower. Mm-hmm. Where they cross in front of us. They're about 55. They dip significantly, so they're about 55 feet as they cross in front of us. They're actually further away from our building frontage than you'd think. I think at a minimum they're 55 feet away. They cross in the Millbrae Square parking lot, and so they're off our property line, our building setback. I think the final number is 55 feet.
Well, if they're 55 feet away from the building and 55 feet away from the floor, from the parking lot structure, it sounds like it's a fairly sizable distance away safely. So I was curious about that. Are you completely overhanging on the El Camino sidewalk? The building, the way it looked in one of the graphics, that looked like the property line, but that might not be the sidewalk line.
Yeah, no, we are not hanging over the property line in El Camino.
Over the sidewalk, not necessarily the property line. Are you overhanging the entire? Okay, so it isn't actually over that.
Not on El Camino, no. Okay. I mean, I don't think we're actually doing it on any other frontages, but particularly not in El Camino, given that Caltrans has purview there.
Okay, that's great. To see the perfect picture, we leave it here for a second. I had a question. So this commercial outdoor space that's on this corner here that a restaurant or somebody could use, that is a sort of private patio to a degree that's fully rounded. Is there a stairwell up there, or?
There is a ramp to get up there. So one thing we didn't really talk about in the presentation, but Broadway is roughly 5 feet above El Camino in grade. So you can kind of see a lot of the grade being made up there underneath that commercial space. So just to the left of that corner, kind of working up the Paseo, kind of shielded by the plantings, there is a ramp that leads up to that space. There you go.
If that's a nice enough space, you could put tables out there for a restaurant and have a commercial space that interacts with. Okay, very nice. I actually like that element to it, that it's not enclosed. Is the roof deck rentable by residents, or is it just an open use?
We'd probably set it up so that if residents wanted to reserve it, they could.
Okay. The commercial on Broadway, back to the sort of like we had that little zone there for that commercial unit. On the far left commercial here, the 6,100 square foot in the Meadow Glen Broadway corner, there shows some outdoor space in this graphic, but I don't see how that outdoor space is incorporated in the elevations.
Let's see if we can pull those up. But there's that corner. Yeah, so there is, so that's not a colonnade like that other covered space that you just pointed out. Mm-hmm. It's just more of an outdoor patio area.
Okay, but like that, because the door to that business would be through the archway, it seems like it doesn't really interact with the business itself. That's unfortunately not as nice as the other one because you have ability to interact closer with it. I mean, those glazings there, you couldn't put a door in one of those glazings for that commercial space to opportunistically use that.
I know, and Nathan, if I'm misspeaking, let me know. But I know there was a challenge with making up the grade change there as well, which I believe is why we do not have a door there. But either Nathan or Civil could provide more information if that's accurate.
You are correct. That is true. At this location, I see what you're saying on that. And I just was walking home today from work and thinking, as I walked past all the restaurants with all their little parklets, how that works functionally. I would assume it works. I mean, all those restaurants are working with the parklets, right?
Yeah,
are you thinking like environmental coverage more?
Well, I'm just thinking more that, if you're going to utilize that space for whatever you're using inside that commercial space, you kind of have to go out through that alley or through the archway, come around to the outside and walk back to it instead of directly interacting with the commercial space. There exactly. Yeah. It just seemed a little bit like it. While it looks nice on the layout on the previous diagram, it just doesn't look like it interacts with it in the elevations here in a way that's meaningful.
I think it's probably an area we can study more closely with staff as we refine the building. I think that's fair. It does look a little.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem having one of those glazings turned into a doorway with a step if you had some methodology to get it to interact better. It would be nice.
I think we can look at that.
Great. Thank you for taking us through on the last side. I had some questions about the EV numbers. You covered that well. Thank you. Tell me about stacking parking.
So parking stackers, they've been around for a couple of decades now, at least.
I think it's been around 100 years if you remember the old New York ones. But
well, at least locally, they've been around for that long.
I haven't seen Millbrae yet, so I'm interested in this for the city.
Yeah. So they're actually going there. They've already been installed, I believe, at the Millbrae BART station project, as they have stacker parking there as well. So I think or let's just say 20 years or so ago, you typically only saw them in San Francisco, Berkeley, and Oakland. As people are becoming more comfortable with them, and construction costs are going up, and parking is becoming more expensive, and fewer people are using cars. They're becoming more acceptable in other markets. So I know they're being used in projects in Burlingame. They're being used in, like I said, the project at the Millbrae BART station. So yeah, these are pretty simple, secure systems where you pull in with your car. You have a fob that'll open a secure gate. You'll drive your car in to one of the spaces that's always open. Get out of your car. Go back to the little the little fob sensor. Swipe your fob. It'll close the gate, and then move your car up into the stacker, and then leave another open spot available for the next person. So they're pretty nice systems. They're pretty secure because you're parked behind a gate within a garage, effectively. They're systems that I've used before, and they work pretty well.
But they can still get your car out, even if a car came in behind you. You can get it around the other car that came in.
Yeah, so there's different configurations. You'll see the stackers there that are kind of close to El Camino. Those are 2 deep stackers. So those will move up and down and back and forth, and so you can always get your car out from those. And then the more simplistic stackers, which are just the up and down or the side to side, are closer to Broadway.
Okay, and now being back to the EV part, these stacker systems don't have a EV associated potential, do they?
This has been something the stacker industry has been working on. I don't believe we're showing any of these stackers as EVs in this plan,
okay.
though.
I just know, obviously, as we phase out gas-powered vehicles in the next 30 years, that we're going to be having, obviously, a higher demand, and this project will last longer than 30 years.
Yep.
I do like, by the way, to their community member, Ken Chan, who mentioned about the address at One Meadow Glen. I like the sound of One Meadow Glen better than I do the 959 El Camino. I hope you actually get the number One Meadow Glen instead for the building.
We think we can, but we didn't want to be inconsistent with the initial address on the application.
Well, I'd like to see it as One Meadow Glen, to be honest. Well, I guess I'll defer any other questions to anything that rises up in thought next and let other commissioners go forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Delaney. Always great questions. Commissioner Quigg, did you want to go ahead? You're muted still.
Thank you. Thanks for asking the questions about the stacking, and I'm still a little confused on the stacking. And you're saying you can move it to the side or up or down, so then it has to be larger than a regular parking spot? How can they maneuver it to the side?
So typically they are a little wider because there is a structure that needs to be in between the stalls, and then they need to happen in areas that are taller as well. So because we have the double height retail on the ground floor, that gives us the additional height to put in the stackers, so that you can, have two cars stacked on top of each other within 16 feet of clear height.
How many stacks are there? Is just 1 and 2, or is there more than 1 and 2?
There are 2 levels, 1 and 2. Yep.
1 and 2.
Correct.
Now, are these stacked parking spots assigned? And maybe you can refresh my memory on the unbundled and bundled. We heard it very much so when we were looking at the project from Mr. Musi. I can't think of the name of it right now, but yours are going to be unbundled parking, is that right?
Unbundled parking, correct. So meaning that residents will pay for their parking stalls separately, or if they don't want a parking stall, they don't need to pay anything. And so typically how we'll manage that is by assigning parking stalls. For a stacker stall, that's a little different, obviously, because stackers move around. So it often happens with stackers, because there is a little bit of a lag time to access your car. Typically, the rate that a resident would pay for a stacker stall would be less than they would for a standard surface stall.
Okay, so each unit will have a specific spot.
Yeah, that's part. Well, they'll have a specific surface stall, or they'll have a bank of stackers, if you will. So they'll go into one of those 3 stacker areas that you see on the screen there.
Okay, and so the person that is paying for a stack, whether their car is underneath or on top, they can just, how do they get it out? There's
always within every, I think it's 6 stalls, there's always 1 stall that is vacant. So that allows you to move the stalls around in such a manner to get all the cars out.
Oh my God, that would never work for me because I'm always in a rush. I mean, and if you've got to deal with stacking. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I think I understand a little bit better. I thought somebody would have to help you. I had a question, and maybe I'm glad to see that the trash trucks can come inside. That's wonderful. However, in the future, as we go towards the downtown, we're working towards having 2 lanes of traffic. The trucks are going to be coming, I mean, based on the amount of people and based on recycle and everything else, there's going to be trucks every day. Right now, it does not appear to be a problem because everything is going to happen inside the building. And they're basically, the big trucks are just going to come in and then they're going to go out. Have you ever thought of how it would maneuver once there's only 2 lanes? It's just a thought.
Yeah, that's something that we thought of. We knew that obviously we were aware that there were, future plans to potentially add a bike lane to El Camino and change the traffic configuration of El Camino. So we did think about that. I think part of the challenge in this particular site is that, it really doesn't have a back door, in that all its frontages kind of wanted to be active. And so, when in talking with our trash management consultant and with the scavengers, it did take a little bit of arm twisting, but they did agree to come into the building. And that was primarily because it was off El Camino. And how that's going to work is they're going to come in very early in the morning, because otherwise El Camino would be too crowded, and they're going to make their trash pickups then. So that helps with the current state, and it should help with the concern in the long term as well, just to kind of reduce the amount of potential conflicts of bikes and cars interacting with the trash truck when it's there very early in the morning.
Okay.
And just in terms of pickups, they are going to be there about 3 times a week. There's some pretty large bins that are in there, bins and compactors, so we're not going to need everyday service.
I would tend to think that the chutes that you're going to use, there's 1 per floor. Is that noisy or anything like that? Because there's units right around it.
Yeah, the chutes themselves typically aren't too noisy. The compactor in the basement can be a little noisy, but that'll be, or I said in the basement on the ground floor, but that'll be underneath the concrete deck. So, sound attenuation is something that will need to be, I'm assuming you're talking about just kind of being able to hear trash go down the chute if you have a unit next door to those. And I think that's something that we'll certainly pay attention to with sound attenuation and our sound consultants.
Okay, on one of the floors, it shows the amenity and fitness and electrical. Is that at street level, the electrical machinery, or is it below?
The electrical machinery, I think it's kind of surrounded there by the bike room. That does need to be at grade. I think for this building, we're going to need 3 transformers. We actually have an application into PG&E on one of the locations to allow us to put the transformer in the sidewalk. Unfortunately, PG&E has been moving away from that. So we're kind of showing these transformer vault rooms that'll have doors that'll go out to the street and allow PG&E direct access to them. They're not our favorite, facade of the building, but they are unfortunately something that's necessary in order to supply power to the building.
Okay, because that was kind of my thought. If it's visible, would it? I guess you can't. It's those electrical things that have to be visible. Because I was thinking if there was a trellis in the front, because the fitness is going to have windows and the amenities is going to have windows in front of it, right?
That's correct.
But I guess that the mechanical room has to have windows in front of it also. Is that right?
The mechanical room, I believe by code, will not, just because you want those rooms. Closed. Yeah, you want those rooms secure and don't want glass in there or something to break in there. And I mean, there's some machinery in there, metals that could have value. Okay. So you want those rooms as secure as possible.
Okay. Is there any way to screen it so you don't just see big gray doors? Or
I think we're pretty limited in what we can do there. I don't know, Nathan. Do you want to take over here? I'm probably getting.
What I will say is, it is not just
right on the El Camino.
It is very important. So what we've done is we've added a lot of articulation along this facade. So it's got a lot of pilasters. And if you go to the renderings, you can kind of see it's a lot more texture instead of, right here. It's not just flat walls. You can kind of see the trash room doors actually kind of mid-page on El Camino Real. So we have a lot of texture. It's not just flat walls. We don't want flat walls for sure.
Well, no, I did notice that. I've got to say, this rendering is much nicer than what was in the Daily Journal. It was like, I think I sent a note. I said, is this what we're going to look at? Because it was not very attractive at all. So I'm so glad it's much, much nicer than that. The loading, the current loading dock area is not yours. In one of the rendering, it shows landscaping, but did I see that correctly?
Yeah, we wanted just to show You will not see that included on any formal
Okay,
plan set within our submission. We just wanted to give a sense of maybe what could be there if that is developed in the future. But you'll notice we called out city parcel not a part of the project, so we just wanted to give people a sense that as opposed to just holding a white space there, that we've gotten a lot of questions about. We just wanted to loosely describe what could go there, but that will need to be defined and that will need to be worked out with city staff in future discussions.
I'm going to let someone else speak because I have to get up and turn my lights on. I can't see the rest of my notes, so I may have to come back. But in the meantime, you can continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Quigg. I'll go ahead and add my comments at this time while Commissioner Quigg is turning on her lights. I would concur with, I think, what other people have said already in terms of the design. I really like it and appreciate the applicants and the staff for all your hard work to make it. It looks really attractive, especially considering what's there now. So looking forward to seeing that and seeing especially the sidewalks as well being expanded and improved and more greenery and the public space, all of that, love it. Retail restaurant space, that was something great to see. And at the same time, housing and affordable housing is huge. So I think that was well done. That's exciting to see. And then the circulation plan in general with the Meadow Glen having the right turn only into and out of was a great call, because that was one of the things that I noticed and really appreciated, because that's a concern. And then there's something else, but I did have a question regarding the, if you could put up the vehicle circulation slide again. I just wanted to clarify a few things for myself. Okay, that's good. So there is the residential parking ground floor access is from Meadow Glen. That's clear. And then from El Camino Real, you have the access to the below grade residential parking. So there is no access to the below grade parking except through here? Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if you went in through the ground floor residential parking, there's no you can go around and meet the downstairs. No, right? It's completely separate.
It's completely separate. Yeah, they're completely separate entrances.
Okay. I was wondering how that works in terms of, I like the fact that the trash trucks will enter directly El Camino, don't have to turn around and go straight out Broadway. But if they're sitting right near the trash room, and then you have the below grade residential parking exit and entrance right there, is there enough space for all of that to happen where you don't have a resident who's blocked in by trucks?
Yeah, so that is one of the reasons why we kept the Broadway right out, just in case that there was a trash truck backed into that trash room and residents trying to come out of the below grade garage. So if you can imagine that trash room is slightly offset from the ramp to below grade. So the residents would still be able to make a right if they're coming up the ramp from below grade, still be able to make a right and then follow that purple path down to Broadway.
So where would the trucks be on this?
So the trucks would, so the way the trucks sit, they can kind of back in to the trash room there. So they do. So yeah, this is kind of how it works. And we're still, so we've coordinated this with scavengers, and there's still some, final tweaks to be worked out with both scavengers and then Caltrans for El Camino. But this is the latest and greatest that we're working with, and we think something like this is what will likely get approved. We've also talked to them about whether there's potential to back straight in from El Camino so that there wouldn't be that conflict. That's something that hasn't been finalized yet. So it'll be either very similar to this plan or a straight back in from El Camino.
Okay, so the way that you have it here is that they would actually drive in into the residential below grade parking entrance and then make a turn and back in. That's
correct.
Okay, and then if they back in, that space is enough for the truck to be fully in or not?
Their nose, the nose of the truck will be slightly out, which is why was pointing out the Broadway exit, just because, you know, there may not be, depending on how far they back in, there may not be enough clearance to get back out on El Camino. Keep in mind the trash trucks are going to be coming very early. That was part of the plan, so we're not anticipating any significant conflicts during that time. But that is why we wanted to maintain the Broadway exit as kind of a safety valve
for the residential below
for the
grade
residential. Yeah, the trash trucks won't travel through there, but it is for the residents to be able to have an alternate way to get out of the below grade garage as opposed to going on to El Camino.
Okay. And they could also go out through El Camino, though. Is that?
Yes, they can, but
Okay.
but I think I was speaking to the scenario where there might be a trash
If there's a
truck.
trash truck,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And that ramp is wider there. That drive aisle is wider there than our typical drive aisle. So that's one of the accommodations that we made.
Okay. That's. Just want to make sure you don't get people who, even if say early in the morning, there are people who work early in the morning. So, you know, we don't want people stuck, and especially if there's an emergency. I just want to make sure that it's clear. Commissioner Del Negro is the one who usually has an issue with single entry and exits, and I'm surprised he didn't say anything here. But I just wanted to make sure, you know, how all that function. If you can pull up please the slide for the view from Broadway and Millbrae Square parking lot, the rendering. Okay, thank you. Well, that was quick. So just looking at this above the commercial in the corner, there is a balcony right above Broadway. Is that right in the center where you have commercial a little bit more to the right? That corner.
Right there. Yep.
Okay, so that's a private balcony?
Yes. So kind of along. So one thing that we probably didn't talk enough about in the presentation, the ground floor, the building set back along Broadway. It's also set back along Paseo. So the ground floor sticks out a little bit from the floors above. That was to help reduce the feeling of verticality in the building. And then based on that move with the building, that created some patios that the residents or the units that are immediately adjacent to these areas will have access to. So it'll just be private patios for those units.
Okay. I don't know about the other commissioners, that it feels awkward to me that you're going to have commercial space and then you can have theoretically somebody with their balcony sitting outside and looking down at people walking. That I'm trying to visualize that, and it seems a little bit awkward to me. I'm not sure if that's just me, but to have some, because it's only on the second floor as well, so it's right above where people may be walking and, you know, trying to, if there's outdoor seating or things like that, it's a little bit of an awkward spacing. So
Yeah,
I'll just make a note of that.
They will be, you know, approximately 20 feet up. So I think that'll help with that condition that you might be concerned about. You know, we actually think it's something you probably see a little bit more in urban environments, and this you know, project is certainly kind of moving in that direction. You know, in some ways, if they're maintained, we think it can be kind of a nice way to help activate the street if you have residents above and retail below.
Okay, that's the other questions I had, you covered a lot, so I don't really have any other questions. Again, I think it looks very attractive to me, and it's good to see more retail, more restaurants, more housing, all of it in there. The whole trash truck thing seems still a little awkward to me, so I would just, if there's a way to resolve that a little bit better, more naturally, that would be great. But it's not enough where I would, you know, hold it up because of that. Commissioner Del Negro.
Yeah, I had one more question about the affordable units. Yeah, I love that you were splitting them up. You had one of the largest units being affordable, and you kind of divided them up between all the different size units. Dispersion of those units, are they random? Are they going to be spread out so people have no idea who's who?
So we'll be required to disperse them. We have not worked out those locations yet. That is something that we'll do with staff as we move through the building permit process.
Great. And very important, obviously, that, you know, they're integrated well and kind of quietly, people don't know who's who, and it creates a great community. Great.
Okay, do we have any other questions or a motion? Commissioner Quigg, you're muted, so just.
I have one more question. How many units are going to have balconies? Are they all going to be the French balcony that have balconies, other than the ones at that bottom floor?
Yeah, so about approximately 90, I think it's 94 units will actually have balconies. So, that's about a third of the units roughly will have balconies, and that includes balconies and patios.
And those are French balconies only, right?
No, those are, some of those are all, we're not, so I think you're referring to Juliet's, which are typically just balconies that kind of look like balconies, but you can't really step out on them. We have 94 kind of true balconies or patios. I'm kind of referring to those areas that we were talking about over the retail as patios because they sit on top of the podium deck. But we also have balconies that are, maybe what are they, Nathan? 5x8 balconies or a little larger.
They're about 6 by 10.
6 by 10.
Yeah, 60 square feet. Yeah.
That's good size.
Is kind of a is kind of the standard balcony size for the project.
Yeah. No, that's very comfortable. I don't know. I just feel balconies when you're in an apartment. In order to go outside, you have to find the elevator, get in the, find the elevator spot, and then get down the elevator, up the elevator. I think balconies offer so much more open space. So I like that. The other thing I was going to mention is the rooftop area. I'm glad you have it facing the mountains, and I'm glad that you also have the glass around it, because Millbrae is notorious for the wind, as you can see. So I think that's it. I'm still a little confused on the stacking, but I'm not going to have to do it. So they'll figure it out. And I think that's it. I didn't see, in the landscaping, I didn't see many vines. Did I miss that in the landscape plans?
We're not
You've
showing a
got
lot
the
of vines.
houses, but I just wonder.
Yeah, we're not showing a lot of vines. We have a lot of trees and a lot of pretty dense planting along the perimeter.
But no vines or anything.
We don't have any vines integrated into it right now.
Yeah, typically vines from an owner perspective can become a bit of a maintenance issue.
Yeah, it is.
We've created kind of that lighter facade, and particularly on a light facade like that can be an issue. So that was why we didn't propose those.
Yeah, the only thing is it vines add more color and the seasons and all that kind of stuff. So if you can find a nice spot, it would be nice to have some vines on the building. But yes, I do know that they are more work and more everything. Everything pretty is more work and more everything. So, okay. I also think it's a very nice project. This vesting for the tentative parcel map for condominiums. I feel condominiums are very important in a city. When there's a condominium, people feel an ownership to the city and more connected. What are the chances of it being converted to condominiums?
I can't speak to the chances. My company does not build condos, and unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of companies that are building condominiums right now, just given the market and some of the liability concerns with new condominium ownership, particularly in California. So I can't speak to what might happen in the future, but under our ownership, we would not be operating them as condos.
Okay.
Do we have, actually with the balcony, so I'm assuming that you will have rules, like strict rules in terms of what you can put out there, because it is right in the middle of our downtown. So
Yeah, we will.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
that's one of the drawbacks of balconies is sometimes they become storage areas. So
Yep.
we'll manage that closely.
Storage areas, hanging laundry, etc. So we just want to make sure, it's right in the middle of our downtown. So, or not in the middle, but it's right there. So that would be good.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Quick.
On a building that size, how many resident and managers would there be to take care of that?
Oh, that's a good question. Typically, I think our typical staff on a building the size would be about 6 people. You'd have a manager and an assistant manager, a couple leasing people, and then a full-time maintenance person that would live on site. And that maintenance person, there really support. There actually could be 3 on the maintenance team. So somewhere in that 6 to 7 range is kind of the on-site staff that we would have. Not all of them would live on site, but at least 2 or 3 of those staff members would live on site.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Negro.
Exact. One last question. What is the anticipated total full occupancy of the building? I mean, I got the numbers for the number of units, but what is the total expected?
I mean, like as a
capacity, the number of, if you rent it out every one, what are we at as far as expectation?
In terms of number of residents or?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I think it's actually addressed in the CEQA analysis. I want to say it's somewhere around 400 actual residents, but it could be. I mean,
2.5 residents per unit would be in the 600s, and I didn't.
Yeah, but it's not. It's more. We would need to. I guess for an official number, we would need to refer you to the CEQA docs, and I would need to pull that up.
Chair, through the chair, if I may, we have a CEQA consultant who can probably provide more information on that.
Okay, please.
Heidi Mickelson from ICF.
Okay, please go ahead, Ms. Mickelson.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm Heidi Mickelson with ICF. We're the city's CEQA consultant. The CAT-X document, the categorical exemption document, does provide an estimate of the project's residential component, which we use for the environmental analysis purposes. And our estimate in that document is 795 new residents. That's based on the citywide persons per household ratio of 2.86.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
I guess that would put us at, your facility would house about 2 to 3% of the total population of Millbrae, if you just remember, which is pretty large. And so obviously it's a big investment. We're very happy to see the investment in our city. I guess is it okay to start making some comments here about my taste on it, or we would like to wait for
Sure.
that?
No comments, and
right,
if there's
so
a motion.
I like what I'm seeing, especially your commitment to affordability. While, obviously the city would like to see a higher ratio in the future with the upcoming, requirements for what you guys put in, for the time that you've done, how you've distributed them. I appreciate it. I do think this is meant to achieve a good level of affordability for the city and bring housing that's needed. I like the arches. I like how you design the archways within the building. I appreciate the design of it for sure, and the articulations. The commercial, I do appreciate and like the fact that you have 3 different commercial zones, 2 different commercial areas within the building, potentially 3 different businesses, and how you made them interact inside and outside and brought it back to Broadway and to the Millbrae Square. That was very well done. And I think that really speaks to the quality of the design of the project and what you've done over the years on trying to transition it to meet Millbrae's expectations and desires. The biking facilities, it's on par with what I would hope to see it in a project, having been on the pedestrian and bike advisory committee for Millbrae. This fits with what I would hope to see. I'm happy about that. And of course, as Commissioner, I'm sorry, as the chair mentioned earlier, I do typically get very aggressive about understanding entrances and exits to parking lots. You have created 2 different parking lots within one building, and you technically have 2 different entrances and exits. In fact, you have 3 exits for the building, which I can appreciate how that is. It would have been nice, yes, if both parking lots had some connectivity to try and create a second out for the one parking lot, but you've balanced it and you've created so not everybody's under one roof as far as in and out. I do like that as a mitigation. The big losses, the things that do kind of make me feel uncomfortable is the loss of the diagonal parking on Broadway and the impact that has on a lot of people that use that diagonal parking. It's always packed every time I drive through there. So that is a concern for me. And of course, I have a little less desire to see big vehicles exit on Broadway from the commercial area. I'm happy to see the idea that the trash trucks would exit on El Camino instead. And the tree mitigation would definitely help ease that. Make sure the line of sight is clean as you exit from that Broadway exit, particularly if you're gonna have large vehicles and pedestrians interacting. It's such a high risk. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, and we discussed, I would like to see activation of that Meadow, Glen, and Broadway corner to really get to interact more with the commercial space. That would really improve, in my opinion, the quality of that third commercial site. And with that, I'm happy to see the project as it is.
Thank you. Did you want to make a motion, Commissioner Negro, or do we want to have other people?
I want to make a motion, but I don't want to have to read it. I struggled last time.
I think we made it easy this time.
Commissioner Davis I think she's up for it.
I'll read it. What the heck?
Can you put the motion up on the resolution up on the screen, please? I think that'll be helpful.
We actually have it on the back.
Yes. So move to adopt a resolution approving a design review permit, conditional use permit, and a vesting tentative parcel map for condominium purposes, adopting a class 32 categorical exemption in accordance with CEQA guidelines section 15332, infill development projects, and directing city staff to file a notice of exemption for the categorical exemption to allow for a 6-story tall mixed-use building with 273 residential units, approximately 17,210 square feet of ground floor commercial space, and below grade and ground level parking on an approximately 1.86 acre site located at 959 El Camino. Please.
Okay,
And
thank you.
is based on the findings of approval.
Based on
You
the
have to read the whole
findings
thing.
and all the conditions attached.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may
Okay.
just interject briefly, excuse me, Vice Chair Davis, I believe you meant to say 278 residential units.
Is that not what she said?
I heard 273.
278 is what it says here.
278.
Yeah, I heard 273. Just wanted to
I
make
heard
that
273.
perfectly clear for the
Oh,
record.
it's an 8.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We want to make sure we're clear. Do we have a second?
I would like to second the motion.
Second from Commissioner Del Negro. Great job reading, Vice Chair
Thanks.
Davis. And can we call for the vote, please?
First, Commissioner Del Negro,
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes.
The motion passed by 4-0 with Commissioner Wong excused.
Thank you. And I believe there's still a 10-day appeal period for this, but thank you. Congratulations to the applicants and looking forward to seeing a great building out there. So hope that moves forward smoothly.
Great. Thank you for your time. We appreciate all the comments.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and move on to item number 5, which is new business. So we have the nomination and election of chair and vice chair. So let's go ahead with the chair first. So do we have a motion or a nomination for chair?
I would like to go ahead, Catherine.
You gotta fight it out. Commissioner Quigg, go ahead.
Okay. I nominate Maureen Davis for chair for next year.
Do I have a second?
I have a second.
We have a second. Can we vote, please?
Commissioner Del Negro,
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes. Thanks.
Chair Joe.
Yes, of course.
All right. The commission appoint Commissioner Davis as the new chair by the vote of 4-0 with Commissioner Wong excused.
Thank you very
I would
much.
like to make a motion to elevate Commissioner Quigg to be the vice chair.
Okay, so we have a, yes, Commissioner Quigg.
Thank you very much, but I think we usually go in rotation, and even though Commissioner Wong is not here this evening, I would defer to Commissioner Wong for next year. Is that okay?
Would you like to wait for his presence to do this at another meeting? We've done that in the Park and Rec before. We've waited on electing a vice chair until the person was present.
Okay, do we want to do that? That's fine as well.
That's not a bad idea.
To do what? I'm sorry.
To hold off because Commissioner Wong is not present right now, so
Okay.
to hold off on voting in electing a vice chair. Is that with the staff? That's okay, right? To do. Mr. Mata, Mr. Raskin, somebody.
Yeah, that's within your discretion to do.
Okay, so is that what the other planning commissioners feel okay about that?
I would be okay with
It's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Twigg,
And
that's
I
okay.
promise
I would
to
tend
show
to
up next time.
Just go ahead and do it, but he did get approved for a next
Right,
for next
he will
term.
be here
So
next
we
term.
really, thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate that, but I wouldn't want somebody not to do me, and so if it was my turn.
That's acceptable, no problem.
Sure.
So
Okay, cool. Okay, so we will, so we have elected Chair Davis, and then we will hold off on Vice Chair for the next meeting. Staff updates.
Yes, thank you, Chair Joe. And for staff update this evening, I wanted to bring the commission's attention to our community meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. And the community meeting is about the housing element update. The city is part of the general plan update, is updating the housing element as well. We are holding a community meeting where we're seeking input on the city's housing programs and policies. That meeting is tomorrow. More information on that meeting. There's a Zoom meeting, so anybody can participate from a phone or computer. It is only on Zoom at this time. Information on that meeting can be accessed through the website ci.millbrae.ca.us/HEU. There's also more information about the housing element process. And so we hope that everyone watching tonight and anybody you may know that may be interested in the housing element will participate tomorrow evening. We have conducted outreach to housing advocacy groups and advisory groups today. We will have also additional outreach for market rate developers, getting their input and thoughts on housing in Millbrae, and that is tomorrow. The general community meeting, that's at tomorrow with the city, but the general community meeting for the members of the public would be tomorrow evening at 6. We also will be having ongoing, so we're soliciting ongoing input on the housing element for anybody who has comments on that process or questions can email Mr. Guevara, NGUEVARA ci.millbrae.ca.us, and we'd be able to answer any questions. And also with that, we do have a housing survey which will be up online, and that survey can be accessed through the city's housing element update webpage that I just mentioned. That website, that housing survey will be up for another 2 weeks, asking general questions about their experiences with housing, how hard it is to find housing, just various questions, and all these input and the responses we get will be included in our housing element update, which we're currently working on, and the draft of that we're still working on, but probably sometime towards the end of the summer.
And next meeting because next Monday is a holiday, so.
Yeah, next meeting will be canceled. Will not be rescheduled due to a lack of items. We will have a meeting on the one after that, which is July 18th, though.
Okay. And is that it for the staff updates?
That is it for the staff updates.
Okay. So we'll go to planning commissioner announcements. So any announcements? And I guess if I could start, if it's okay, because it's my last meeting. So I just wanted to, so I will not be continuing, as you all know. So this is my last meeting. I wanted to really thank the city council for appointing me and giving me the opportunity. I think it was 3 times. So altogether 8 years, but I kind of came in the middle of somebody's term. So I really appreciate the trust from the council and the residents. Thank you to the my fellow commissioners. I think only Commissioner Quigg was here when I started, so there's been a lot of turnover, but I really learned a lot from the very beginning from all of my fellow commissioners, and Commissioner Quigg really took me under her wing and kind of helped me out. And and congratulations, because 30 years yesterday she was acknowledged by City Council. So for 30 years of service, that's amazing, because this is not an easy job. You know, it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and Commissioner Quigg really brings a lot of the historical knowledge and value to the city. And then congratulations to Commissioner Wong and to Nathan Chan as the new commissioners, and definitely Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Del Negro as our new addition, and always with your great questions. And then, of course, to the staff, I really wanted to say thank you. I'm so glad Elaine was here, because I really missed her, and just all of the staff, Roscoe and Nestor and Sam and so many others, just current and past, who put in a lot of work. And I know people don't understand how much work they put in, but the packets that we see is just hours and hours of work, and then being at our meetings and being ready. And I know, especially at the beginning, I had lots and lots of questions, so they were very patient to help me. And it's really been a privilege to serve at this time, because Millbrae is in such transition. When I first started, I thought, well, I'm going to get to learn more about second story additions and setbacks and things like that. And it went far beyond that, with the specific plan, the TOD projects, short-term residents and ADU ordinances, just so many different things, and getting to start with the new general plan and all of the developments. And I'm really torn, because I feel like there's so many things that I wish I could kind of see through to seeing them. And I'll still be in Millbrae, so I'm not going anywhere. I just, for now, I need to step away a little bit, but I really look forward to seeing all the new developments, and we'll be cheering on my fellow commissioners, because it is a lot. I mean, we receive a packet on Thursday and Friday, and I'm like, okay, I'm not having a very good weekend or Monday at times. And so it does take a lot of work, and I really appreciate everyone who steps up to take it on. So so thank you very much. I really I feel privileged to have been able to serve, and I will continue to, of course, root on Millbrae, and I'll be here. And if things ever do lighten up, I'd love the opportunity maybe to come back. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you, everyone. With that, any other comments? I just wanted to, any other announcements?
I wanted to say thank you. Oops, go ahead.
Well, you go.
I want to say thank you, Chair Joe. It's been fantastic working with you. Absolute respect and pleasure over the last year.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed with how you've led us.
Thank you.
Yes, Jean, thank you so much for everything you've done. I'm going to miss you terribly.
Oh, we'll all still see each other.
I'll miss you here.
Yeah.
In this context.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. All right. So
Kathy wants to say something.
Oh, Kathy, you're muted. Okay, you were.
I know, I unmuted. Didn't I unmute?
You were okay. I can hear you now.
Just mute and unmute. Yes, no. I didn't realize how sensitive those microphones are. So you really have to mute. But anyway, thanks for all your work. You have been great. And I know you're going to come back, because you're going to miss it all, but anyway, in the meantime, lots of luck and whatever you decide to do. As you know, you excel in everything that you try to do. So you're great. And thanks for your kind comments for me. It's been ups and downs. And every time I think, oh God, we've got a nice planning commission, and I think, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then all of a sudden, all these people resign, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what are we gonna do? So every time everything calms down and something else happens. So, but it's been fun. I've learned a lot also.
I'd like to say a few words as well. Chair Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on the Planning Commission. This has been an absolute joy. I think what I've really appreciated about you and your serving as the commissioner and the chair is that you're very thoughtful analysis and your careful balancing of the community interests with the code and the regulations and property rights. It's always a very challenging situation in development, and you do a very good job of balancing out different interests. And I think that really helps, moving projects forward in a thoughtful way. And your comments are always very, very considerate and thoughtful. And you are been a very, very good commissioner, especially as my time here. I've been here for almost 3 years now, and we'll miss you dearly. We will welcome you with open arms if you decide to come back. And Millbrae is a better city because of your service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I didn't mean to turn this into asking people to say nice things. So I'm like, oh, okay. But thank you. That means a lot from everybody for all your comments. So
we still have 2 more people that want to speak.
Okay, Elaine, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair Joe, I will miss you, and I can't wait to see you around town. I remember you love to go on site visit and kind of look at the design and kind of I have a question about this and that. And I just remember a lot of projects you're saying, I went on the site visit and I saw this and I saw that, and you're always very thoughtful, and not just in the plans, but I remember when I was moving on to my new position, you sent me a card and thanked me, and I just thought, well, that was very kind of you and very sweet. You're just a very thoughtful person overall. So thank you for everything you do for the city.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I've been very impressed by how you lead these meetings so smoothly. It's certainly not an easy task. So best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I mean, with Chair Davis coming in, I'm sure it'll all run smoothly, and she'll do a great job. So.
Hope so.
You've done it before and you did a great job. So yeah. I'm sure it'll be great. Yeah. Okay. So any other announcements? Happy 4th of July, everybody, because no meeting. So especially happy 4th of July. Safe travels if you're traveling, because
Beats and Brews, 4th of July, 3 o'clock on Broadway.
Beats and Brews. So,
but don't expect to go out to dinner in Millbrae on 4th of July. First year, I thought it was COVID. A couple of years ago, I went to Beats and Brews, and then I thought, okay, COVID, nothing is open. Fiddler's wasn't open. The 16 Roundhouse wasn't open. And anyway, and then last year, the same thing happened. So now I'm going to plan something totally different this year.
For dinner?
Yeah. Everything was pretty much closed down. So
okay, or just eat a lot in the afternoon, and then you don't have to eat dinner. So that works.
Right.
Okay. Well, so thank you everyone. And with no other comments or announcements, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting for this evening. Thank you again. Happy 4th of July. Happy summer.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Night.